What's up, legends? As you may already know, Helldivers 2 just added 5 new enemies with the new major update known as the Escalation of Freedom, and some of those units work rather differently than most other units in the game, so it leaves us a bit unsure on how to deal with these units effectively. And that's exactly what I'm here to do today. So we're going to be looking at these 5 units, we're going to talk about how these units work, their weaknesses, their strengths, and of course the most effective way to kill them. So without any further ado, let's start off with the Automaton faction. In the Automaton faction, they've added 2 new units, and we'll be starting out with the smaller one, the Reinforced Scout Strider. So the best way you can understand exactly how these units work is imagine these units are exactly just like a normal Scout Strider with no pilot weak spot, a full plate on their top part, and it shoots rockets occasionally. These rockets are very visible and are fairly slow, so as long as you're paying attention, you should be able to dive away just fine. Now okay, we get all that. How can we kill these units effectively? Personally, I was primarily a Scorcher user against the bots, but these units are very resilient against the Scorcher. Against regular Scout Striders, you shoot at the front plate and the AoE damage will harm the pilots in the back and cause it to die after about 3 to 4 shots. However, this AoE damage does not work very well here against these rocket striders. What this also means is that it will impact the autocannon as well. The autocannon is no longer very effective at just shooting at its front plate. It was taking me about 5 shots or so to get rid of the reinforced strider this way. In other words, if you're using weapons such as the Scorcher or the autocannon or Jar Dominator, it is a better idea to finish off these striders by shooting at their leg area. One very interesting thing I found about these reinforced striders is that you can actually shoot its rockets on its side, and by blowing up one of these rockets you will actually kill the strider in one explosion, as you see here in the gameplay. So I found that to be a neat way to deal with these units, and if you're using weapons that don't have armor penetration, this is a great way to deal with them. Beware though, their rockets will disappear when they actually fire, which also leads me to believe the amount of rockets they shoot at us are indeed limited. A couple of other interesting notes is that it dies to about the same amount of shots from the AMR, and guess what? The railgun actually one-shots these units without even having to extra charge it. You can just safe mode it and you will one-shot the reinforced striders. So that's a pretty strong way to deal with them. Now moving on to the rocket tanks. Firstly, I have to say, these units are extremely hard to isolate to be able to make this video. First of all, they are absolutely relentless and will constantly blow the crap out of you, and they are always accompanied with dozens of units. This took me several hours to get a couple of good experiments in, and I still wish they turned out a bit better. But anyways, these tanks are the deadliest out of the bunch, no doubt about it. They have rockets that seemingly one-hit you regardless of your armor for whatever reason, and they do not have a heatsink weak spot in their back. As far as weak spots go, the only weak spots I spotted in these tanks are indeed behind them. However, it's now in their engine block. This applies to all tanks, matter of fact. These weak spots do require a lower armor penetrating weapon. For example, this Jar Dominator was enough to damage it, and upon destroying this lower part, the tank will enter a bleed out state, which will be fatal in a few seconds from my understanding. One thing that's interesting about these tanks is hugging them does prevent them sometimes from shooting you. Emphasis on sometimes, but it may be worth a try during desperate times. However, take these tips with a grain of salt. Realistically, the only effective way to destroy these tanks is either by hitting them with rockets, such as commandos, quasar cannons, or EATs, and of course stratagems. They aren't the most resilient tank out of the bunch, so a couple of rockets or a single stratagem should get rid of them just fine. Now moving on to the Terminid side, we've got 3 new enemies, or should I say 4. First off, there's the Alpha Commander. Alpha Commander is the upgraded version of the Brood Commander, and in difficulty 10 you'll only see the Alpha variant, never the regular Brood Commanders. Now I said 4 enemies on the Terminid side because these Alpha Commanders actually spawn warriors just like the Brood Commanders do. However, they spawn Alpha warriors, not regular warriors. The big difference between regular warriors and these Alpha warriors seem to be their speed. These are a lot faster. I mean, if I had to estimate it, I'd give them about 50% or so faster than regular warriors. Now that's just a guess though. Their health doesn't quite seem to be affected. I mean, they die to the same amount of shots as regular warriors do, and if they do actually have an increased health, then it's really not noticeable. In my eyes, these are just faster and deadlier versions of the warrior. However, for the Alpha Commander, there is indeed a health difference between them and the Brood Commander. More specifically, the Alpha Commanders have 25% more health, bringing them from 200 health to 250. And on top of that, they have an increase in durable resistance, or in other words, they are a bit tougher against low durable damage weapons as well. So if you're using, let's say, an autocannon, you'll still be one-hitting these units just fine, but for weapons such as the Breaker, you'll notice a large difference in their defense. These units, unlike the Brood Commanders, will not charge at you nearly as much. Matter of fact, these units oftentimes just prioritize their spawn mechanics, and it actually often retreats to the back of the pack to do so. I mean, it will take charge if it is nearing you, but if you pay attention, you'll oftentimes see it retreat to spawn more bugs. Overall, these units are here to beefing up the bulk of the bug army. Now let's move on to the Spore Charger. The Spore Charger is the most exotic out of all of the Chargers. Now these Chargers share the same health pool as the regular Chargers, a total of 1,500 health, whereas the Behemoths have 1,800. These Spore Chargers most notably bring a fog around them, and you'll be able to distinguish its fog from the Nursing Spewer due to its greenish color. These Chargers overall are actually a lot easier to deal with than most of the other Chargers when not taking the restricted visibility into consideration. These Chargers' underside is actually unarmored, or at least low enough armor that pretty much all weapons are able to damage it by just shooting at its chest area like this. However, I would not recommend you take that approach, as you'll be going up against its full health pool by taking this route. It will take you absolutely ages to take these big guys down this way. I suspect due to this open area, laser cannons and autocannons might be a bit more useful against these units, but all in all, the easiest ways to deal with these Chargers is the same as any other Charger. Just shooting its face off with a commando or EAT, and 2 rockets will get rid of these big guys. Rail cannons, rail guns, and shooting its body is rather ineffective in comparison. Just be careful though. As you blow these guys up, they will release an acid AoE that will damage and slow you down a little bit. And last but not least, the talk of the town, the Impaler. The Impaler has a few ways to take down, as it contains a variety of different health pools, some more effective than others. But first we need to understand the Impaler. The Impaler will attack you by diving its head into the ground, and by doing so, the large tentacles will come down off the ground to slam you down, which, by the way, when playing solo, this is absolute hell, as you consistently get stun locked by these tentacles. Either way, we've got a few ways to deal with these, so let's check them out. First of all, you cannot kill Impalers by shooting their tentacles. I tried, and I sat there for like 10 minutes shooting their tentacles, and absolutely nothing happened, so I feel like that's worth pointing out. And also, you can just try to hammer its front plate, which is probably what most people do the first time they see the Impalers, which is a pretty ineffective way to clear out the Impaler. I couldn't get a good kill on its front plate, as it would constantly burrow down as I started engaging at it, but do avoid just trying to rocket down its front plate. Best case scenario, you can dump, say, a commando flurry of rockets at it and try to finish it off with a primary weapon before it spawns its tentacles. However, I'm going to teach you 2 of the best ways I found to kill these Impalers at different ranges. First off, assuming you're far away from the Impaler and you can't quite get close to it, I found the best stratagem to deal with Impalers to be just a flat out rail cannon strike. This will one-hit the Impaler no matter what, and of course it will do the aiming for you, but sadly we of course have to waste a stratagem slot here, mostly to handle Impalers, but in my opinion it's the easiest way to kill them. them. Of course, a well-placed 500 kilo bomb will also do the trick, so will a nice exosuit. It will work them out quite fine. However, the rail cannon just happens to be the easiest and most effective way of dealing with them. Now, orbital and ego stratagems aside, what's the most effective way to kill it with a support weapon? I found the most effective weapon to be the commando rocket launcher. What you want to do is run at the Impaler and lay down 3 rockets at one of its back legs, and you will kill the Impaler nearly instantly. This is by far the fastest way to kill an Impaler. The downside of this though is, of course, you have to be able to manage to get really up close to it, or at least get a clear angle at its back legs. So it may not always be ideal, as sometimes you don't even see where the Impaler is attacking you from. But assuming you do have a commando and you're not near the Impaler, try to snipe out the back legs. But if you can't, just shoot at its head and finish it off with your primary weapon, even though that's not really ideal. I tried a variety of different support weapons, and this is the only method I found to kill it faster than it could even react. All of the other support weapons you can just lay down fire on its head, but it will take far longer. However, do not waste your commando shots on its front legs, because for whatever reason, the front legs have an insanely large health pool, which will take just as long as shooting the head to kill. Matter of fact, I suspect the front legs and the head share the same health pool for whatever reason, but I can't confirm it. Either way, I hope you guys learned something today. I'll be catching you Helldivers on the next one. Thank you guys very much for watching. Peace!